Let everybody get settled. All right, thank you. Welcome to Puget Sound Garden Railway's 2023 clinics. It's like we got a good showing. We got 7 presentations for you today. We're going to start off with Whimsical Whatchamacallits, which you could see are set up over here, and then I'll introduce JT and his Whimsical Whatchamacallits.
We're good, Bob. Okay, for those of you who don't know me, I'm JT. I work at the old cannery. And who doesn't like the 10-foot rule? The cool part of the cannery is, most of you know, our trains are 9+ feet in the air, so that's kind of the nice part. But anyhow, we're going to be doing Whimsical Whatchamacallits. It's kind of a name I came up with, and don't know why, but it seemed kind of fitting. To kind of give you a little background, I've been with the cannery about 6 years, and when I first started there, the guys, and nothing against purists, but it was like everything's got to be prototypical, and we'll get people to come into the cannery, train people that work for the railroads, like, you know, you can't pull a Union Pacific, and you can't be pulling BNSF stuff and, type of stuff. And so I do understand the purist, and I respect that, and I'm sure some of you out there are that way. So, and that's okay. So, but how this came about is a month or two after I had started working there, somebody had a birthday that worked the fudge bar. So I did this birthday train and did some of this stuff on it, and did a little cake and a little light and stuff. And the CEO later the next day said, that is super cool. And so one thing led to another, and hence the reason for all this stuff. So we do Cinco de Mayo trains, Hollywood or Halloween, Christmas, you name it, we do it. As a matter of fact, we kind of run out of things to do, but I did do this year this little rascal who gave us 6 more weeks of winter. But so this just runs on a trolley. We've got about 6, 7 trolleys. They're running back and forth. So this was a big hit this year. Go ahead and go on to the next. Oh, you're already there. So the old cannery slogan, as you may or may not know, is the fun furniture store. And so along with that is we've done commercials. It's like, hey, come for the furniture and stay for the fun. So, you've all heard the My Railroad, My Rules, and I kind of agree with that. It's kind of sometimes a little egotistical, to be quite honest with you. And it's like, it's my way or the highway, but that's kind of the fun part of working there. We have that. Where we can do all kinds and be flexible. Brainstorming, you've all heard that, there's no bad ideas in brainstorming. Well, there is, but sometimes Bob and I will get together and just joke and come up with all kinds of stuff. But so whimsical by definition is just playfully quaint. I've been told I kind of live in a fantasy world anyhow, so that's okay. So, modelers, as it states up there, we generally don't throw stuff away. And with 80,000 square feet at the store, and we've got 3 shops, and some of you have seen them, so they're quite large. So, but my first experience in that, I was raised with Lionel trains growing up, and we used, I love the concrete stuff, by the way, because that'll last forever, but we use cardboard boxes to make little depots and run our Lionel trains and stuff. So, generally we don't throw anything away. We got a big junk pile, some of us more than others. And I was sweeping up some sawdust and had a bunch of garbage, and I was getting ready to throw it away, and one of the guys, George, who doesn't work there anymore, but he goes, "What are you doing?" And I go, "I'm throwing this garbage away." And he goes, that would make a great train load, you know, and it's like, well, I didn't even think about that. But so, you know, I don't look at landscape the same way. I'm sure you guys that have done this stuff for years don't either. For the last several years, I've been making clouds, so I don't look at clouds the same way either. So this was one of our trolleys in the back. Well, actually, the wall is painted blue, and so the cloud goes back and forth. It's just a funky thing, but hey, go on to the next slide if you would. No, there we go. So again, I brought all this stuff that just would fit the definition of whimsical whatchamacallits. And go ahead and go on to the next slide. So basically, not rules, just kind of some main points. Think it, plan it, build it, do it. So think it, plan it, build it, and do it. Pretty simple. Kind of the old saying is, if you build it, they will come. But these have had just, well, we currently have a dinosaur train, and it's just a hit. You know, I'm sure maybe some of you have done that on your railroads and stuff, but the kids love it, the adults. And I actually had somebody complain, it's like, well, dinosaurs didn't ride trains, you know. It's like, well, yeah, that's true. But so, you know, thinking of it, and it's just, Bob and I go back and forth a lot. It's like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to do this? And or I'll see some of the stuff that you guys do, and it's like, okay, we could take some ideas and do something else. A couple of years ago, we kind of thought of maybe doing some iPads next to each other at an angle, putting it on a flat car. So as it's running around again, you got to think of everything's 9 feet in the air for us, unless you're on the platform. So have like a little reader board on an iPad. But Bob will talk about this later on keeping it powered up. How do we do that? We run a 12-volt system powered track. So it's like right now, we're not at the cannery and all our trains are running. So that's kind of, who's what? Who's watching? That's a good question. So, you know, a couple of people there, if there's a derailment or something, they know how to turn it off and everything else. We got a master switch that just, sometimes every once in a while, somebody will panic and it just hit that. But we replaced all the brass with stainless a few years ago, and so we don't have half the problems. So that was a $10,000 upgrade. And as part of thinking it, you know, when I watched Polar Express a few years ago, you know, you see that one scenario where the train's going up the mountain, and I thought, hey, I'm going to do Mount Rainier and do a train around it for like our Christmas display. And those of you know who've been there, we had like 26 trains running this year, so a lot of work. But then I started, it's just kind of interesting how you kind of learn that kind of stuff. So next is plan it. You've probably all heard those who fail to plan, their plans will surely fail. I think a governmental person came up with that one. I think maybe after 9/11, but draw it and sketch it. I fall short on this, but I get teased about it. But you know, it's like a lot of times, a lot of good ideas come from a dinner napkin. You know, you've heard of people writing songs. I know Dolly Parton's written several songs on a napkin type stuff. So I'm not saying do that, but and I'll show you some pictures here of one of the guys I used to work with, artist, just an amazing sketcher. He'd kind of get upset because I'm more like a doer, so I'll think it and I'm planning it and I'll draw out a rough draft. And then you should see some of Bob's drawings on his electronics, but you kind of have to do that with electronics. But so be flexible, have fun with it. You know, be creative. Use your imagination. I can't tell you how much of this stuff has worked, and sometimes it doesn't work the first time. Now, I do have a little more flexibility working at the cannery because I have a pretty good budget. So I go out and buy stuff, and if it doesn't work, oh well, you know. So I know most of you probably don't have that issue. So yeah, it's not a big deal. Start building it, use stuff that you have on hand, use part of that junk pile. Again, some of us have other stuff, and I'll show you some of the things that I've used here. You know, make a prototype. A lot of these are kind of the first type of things I've done, and test it. Get out, run it. I realize that some of you have issues with your layouts of having bridges and tunnels. So obviously, we have one track that it's, I think, about 8.5 inches because it's a double track in one of our showrooms. So we have to, you can't run a higher stuff, but you know, make adjustments, delete, add stuff. If you remember, like the old space race and the Apollo missions, you know, they didn't go to the moon right away. How many rockets did we blow up back in the day? And rockets went like this before something finally worked. So, and I had one where the boss had a delegation from South Korea, business people come out, and there was like 20 people, and they'll do tours around the store. And I had a little bit of ahead of time, so I made a little trolley, and I put I had to make sure the South Korean flag was the right way and everything else. And I put and these people just went ballistic. They just taking pictures and clapping over a trolley, and the boss later said, hey, that was pretty cool, just those little details, as you guys know, on the little details. But so let's go ahead and go into the next slide.
Details everything.
Yes, yes.
I tell people that 1,000 times.
Well, catering, I have a lot of in-laws involved in catering, you know, food catering, and that's what they say is the little details, you know, and they're not little, but you pay attention to the little things and they become big things. So yeah, no, exactly. Here's one I did on a pennant. Kind of simple, just for the Seahawks, and we had that kind of near our office. And of course, I'm always putting the logo on there, so the boss is kind of like that. And they don't, I don't really think anybody complains over these. Every now and then they make a little bit too much noise, but it's just an old bent there on the right. And it just goes back and forth. I just use the USA Motors, which is a bypass motor. So it can run, you know, these are $50. I pretty much use, that's all I pretty much use on, instead of the LGB stuff, which is a little more spindier. But go ahead and go to the next one. So here's a combination of everything. Hey Bob, why don't you come up here, and if you can. This is the one we experimented with, which is kind of cool. Had to kind of convert it into 12 volt. Why don't you throw the leprechaun one up there? So we did this for Christmas. We had a little Christmas message. That took me a while to do that too, by the way. So. And you can turn that one on. This one, I did it for St. Patrick's. And see, my LEDs are a little, try to do it the other way, see if the other LEDs will work a little better. Yeah, so lights up. And this is a little 2-foot circle. You can run an 040 steamer on there if you want, but you know, how kids, when they see this, they just lock on, well, so do parents. So if that's not the definition of whimsical, I don't know what. So that's St. Patrick's. I'll be running that here pretty soon. Why don't you throw that wine bottle up there? A few years ago, they did a commercial. We do commercials every now and then. They'll bring in professional TV people, and so there was a wine tasting event. So I made this up. Do it the other way. so the LEDs work. Yeah. So just a wine bottle, some cork in there, some LEDs, and I ran that on one of the big tracks while they were doing the commercials, and they just thought that was cool. So the only thing you got to be careful about, notice everything is 9 feet in the air, so if it does fall off, somehow customers don't appreciate stuff falling on their head. But we all have a fence, a chain around all our stuff. So since I've been there, I've only had one piece come off the whole time. That was off a double stack container back in the day. Let's see, we got some Easter stuff that I've ran. This is an egg that's sideways, made to look like a bee, and I pull it with a, those of you familiar with the little egg liners, they have a bee egg liner, so this, and just made it up. Why don't you throw the alligator on there? This was actually a boat from Bass Row Shop, it's remote control, and you can put it in a lake and it's got a little battery. And so my grandson put it in the hot tub, and after that it pretty much didn't work. So he was going to throw it away, and I said, no, I want to keep the gator head. And there you go. Now, you know, is it, like I said, it's whimsical, it's fun. People see that and they just, I'm not sure, Dennis sometimes kind of scratches his head, but why don't you go ahead and go to the next slide. Why don't you show the track one up there? See tracks, think train. I already showed you the cloud, the fudge. This one, the guy came in, whoever the state one, and he was taking pictures right and left. I have this, I run this a lot. So, you know, what can you do? You can just throw a pair of eyes on there, and I got an old piece of track. You know, it's just be creative. We all have those creative juices, or else we wouldn't be kind of doing this kind of stuff. So, go to the next slide.
Make sure your flags fly in the right direction.
Yes. Why don't you throw the snake on there? There we go. So this, just a $10, $12 snake at Target. I got it. I had to kind of mess around with it a little while to kind of figure it out. It's articulated. You'll see I want to make a bigger one, but we ran this for Halloween, and this was a hit. So, I mean, everybody was, a snake on a railroad, you know, but it works. And if it's working on a 2-foot circle, so part of that prototype and fixing problems is the tail kind of kept hitting the corners and stuff, so I had to kind of hot glue it, and I'm sure I use hot glue by the gallon, so hot glue solves, it's like duct tape, it solves everything.
Speaking of hot glue, there's...
Oh, anybody knows what this is? So those of you who have a hot glue gun, you put it and you keep it on, it'll just drip. These are all random drippings of hot glue. And what do? You throw a few eyes on there and you make what? Ghosts. And I put this on my Halloween tree. So these are all random, unpredictable. You know, you kind of think of, you know, this is stuff you throw away. But, yeah. So that was kind of a, what Bob Ross say, a happy accident. Yep, the sky's the limit.
Yep.
Next slide. I think we're just about done anyhow. Yeah. Old Glory, we can run that. I'll run that for Veterans Memorial Day. I had to put a frame around it, so it'll actually still wave. Next slide. This is just a real quick diagram of a guy I used to work with who just, if you look at that diagram, is really, but this is one where it didn't work out, but there's the little, on the picture on the right, there's a little brass wire, and as it goes along the tracks, the heart goes like this, like it's beating. So Valentine's Day, didn't really use it, didn't work, but hey, next slide. The dragon concept, and We're just about done here. I just made this last month. I don't know what it is, but should have put LEDs in it. If you look closely, go to the next slide. Yeah, so I used chain, didn't work out. Those are acorns that they used in Christmas decorations. So I just glued all those on. Anybody know what this is?
Noodles?
The tail?
Twisted aluminum.
Conduit.
Oh, conduit.
Electrical conduit. So,
Where did you get the head?
where did what?
Where did you get the head?
Oh, I had the head 3D printed so you can kind of see one of the guys up there did that. Next slide. So that kind of gives you, these are off a doll. Just have fun. Next one. Which I think is the last one. I did that for the Father's Day when Circus Bob was here, when we had the thing for Father's Day last year. So have fun, just do it. Be whimsical. There are no rules. Thank you.
Great.
What's the cloud made out of?
Spray foam. Use the Big Gap. Stuff you get at Home Depot works best. I've been making clouds a lot, so it's just, some I put LEDs, the blinking ones, so it looks like a storm cloud. So I'm working on rain right now with a monofilament fishing line and drips of hot glue to make it look like rain.
And have a silver lining.
There you go. Don't give up your day job, though. Oh, by the way, so I've got raffle tickets. They're free. Some of you already have it. We'll do it before the end of the clinic here. There's 4 prizes back there. A nice big basket that's got knives and all kinds of cool cannery stuff. Pacific Northwest plaque thing, a steel train art, and a $150 gift card from the cannery. So we'll all draw on that and later. There you go, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, JT. That was a fun one. Okay, next is Bob with battery eliminators and relay modules. I'll let him explain that.
Alrighty,